At the end here of Minicamp, we just want to present Kevin O'Connell 2 awards from the Pro Football Writers of America that he won this offseason. The first is the NFL Coach of the Year, which mirrors his win in the Associated Press. Hold all your applause here until the end. And the second one is the Horrigan Award, which is named for Joe and Jack Horrigan, 2 longtime NFL executives who kind of exemplified professionalism and understanding the job that the media has to do over the course of a season. And it's selected annually amongst a vote of all 32 media markets, for the person who sort of best exemplifies that professionalism and the trust in us and the cooperation and allowing our jobs to go smoothly. And I think it's pretty cool that not only us voted for this, but everybody around the league. And so I think we all know that we have a pretty decent thing going here. And I hate this because I have to say nice things whenever I do these things, but we do have a pretty nice thing going here. And it's cool that the rest of the league understands that as well. And the last thing I want to say is that the Vikings PR department was a finalist for the Roselle Award, which goes to the top PR department in the league. It was won by Washington this year. They're great. They did a great job, but I think it's just probably a matter of time before the Vikings pick that up as well. So that's all the nice things we have for today, Dan and I. So we will present this to Kevin. These are, don't break them or put your fingerprints on them, but we'll hold that one to you. And you get to hold that one too.
There we go.
And now you can applause.
Look at that. Thank you guys so much. Thank you. Oh, I'll try not to. You guys know I'm good to knock something over every now and again, as long as the microphones are nailed down. In regards to, obviously, the Horrigan Award for me was a really, to me, it's a special award because I know going on 3.5 years ago, I can remember being in this very indoor at my opening press conference and making a point to respect not only the jobs you all have to do here locally, which can be a very difficult, kind of delicate job at times, and I just want you guys to know here locally and the folks that I see a lot that I respect the relationships we've been able to build. And ultimately, my respect for the job that you guys have to do means a lot to me. And I know, like you guys said, none of this would be something that would seem like it does for all of us here without our comm staff. And Jeff and his whole department have made my job, which can be difficult at times in a world where we are responsible for everything that goes on the grass with our team, with our players, our coaches. They put us in positions to just be very proud of what we've done around here, and then ultimately rely on you guys to tell the story and make that connection with our fans, so it's not lost on me. And just wanted to say, getting an award is great because it validates a lot of those things, but as we know, we're kind of a process over results kind of organization around here. So as nice as it is to win this award, it's more about the day-to-day with you folks that we get to have. And speaking of which, obviously want to transition now. Haven't talked to you guys in a few days, and I know you've heard from some of our coordinators, some of our players. But before we do start today, and I open it up for questions, just a couple things. I'd like to just take a moment. This is my first time I could take a moment to honor Jim Marshall, Vikings legend, somebody that has meant so much to this organization, the greatest captain maybe in the history of the NFL, 14-time captain. We have our captain's legacy wall for a reason, but in reflecting about Jim Marshall, I go back to my year that I was lucky enough to have with Coach Bud Grant here, and the weekly lunches. There probably wasn't a weekly Thursday where Coach and I got together that he didn't mention Jim Marshall, the player, the person, the leader, how much of an impact that Jim Marshall had on Coach Grant's life, and how unique that relationship was. And he taught me to never, ever take for granted the relationships with your players, because he's had a lifelong one just like that he's had with many players, but his relationship with Jim Marshall meant the world to him, as Jim Marshall's legacy, as a great player, all-time worthy of being in the Hall of Fame, clearly in our opinion as an organization, but means so much to Vikings fans. And just wanted to start out and say that. Also, just in regards to the offseason program, I do appreciate Your guys coming out here to cover us, and it has not felt like an extraordinary rep counting situation. So I want to commend you on that. But in regards to our players, I just told those guys, I don't know what in this day and age the offseason program means around the league, what it means to 31 other teams, but I know we got better. I know we brought in a lot of new players, new faces, either via free agency, the draft. The team is coming together in a really great way. The participation of our team and guys showing up and being here totally present, getting something done, I thought was a really big deal for our team and has set us up to have a really good training camp, which we're very excited about. And then lastly, I know you guys probably saw Brian O'Neill, was excused. His absence was excused today for a personal reasons, so didn't want anybody to be alarmed about that. So with that, I'll open it up to you guys.
Was there any evaluation done? It's mostly teaching, installing reps. Is there any evaluation done these 3 days?
Yeah, I think part of the learning and teaching phase is, as coaches, we're trying to figure out how to communicate, how individual players learn. But once you've kind of figured that out, if you're having a lot of repeat mistakes, and I think I mentioned that one of the things you can really gauge is guys that can learn, grow, move on, and that becomes part of kind of like their inventory to their role in our offense, defense, or special team systems. If they're making repeat mistakes, it now becomes a question to me of, it's not necessarily can I trust them, but way more importantly than that, their teammates, the other 10 guys they're in the huddle with. So they do get exposure to answering that question on a daily basis. Can I be trusted? Can I be a player that knows what to do? And then, we work on the fundamentals and techniques of how to do that. And then eventually they're going to have to compete, every single rep against our own team, against another team for a couple days in the 3 preseason games to figure out what I think is going to be a very difficult process of getting this roster from 91 down to 53.
Whether it's Jefferson or defenders talking about how JJ was just throwing the football in this mini camp, just what have you seen in terms of his growth as just a pure thrower from the time that he got here to right now?
Yeah, I think he's clearly since we evaluated him and getting him here, arm strength has always been there. Accuracy on a lot of the throws that we ask of quarterbacks in this offense have been there. There's been some growth from a standpoint of, you can call it throw variation, arm talent. I mean, everybody's got a name for everything from a standpoint of how do I get this ball completed where maybe there's not a direct path, but I've got to throw it up and over somebody. And I might only have, 8 to 10 yards of space in the end zone in a low red period to get that done. There's been what I want to compliment him on is he's making the attempts. He's learning what it feels like to attempt those throws, so now he can figure out exactly how to apply those reps moving forward to when it's real football and it matters, which is why I think it's always unique when we start really evaluating and grading each individual rep this time of year, because really that goes totally against how I like these guys to attack these 8-9 weeks of work to try to set themselves up to be the best players when those 17 plus games come about. So I think I feel really good about where he's at fundamentally, but it's still that 10,000 reps, that 10,000 hours of we're not that far into that process, and I challenge him every day to embrace it. Can't be too hard on himself, but at the same time, what is your standard to get not where you are right now, but where you want to get to, and he's done a good job of attacking that every day.
You've talked about the value of Justin being here just as a captain, but in terms of his relationship with JJ and the way he talks a lot about kind of trying to gas quarterbacks up with confidence and trust in themselves, trust in him. What does that do for a young quarterback to have a receiver of his stature that's also as supportive as he's been?
Yeah, and it's something that I talked to Justin about, because he's not as much as when I first got here. He had been such an accomplished player already in his career, but he still felt like a young player when I first got here. And the way our relationship has grown, the things that him and I talk about, we're very close, but at the same time, I've talked to him about, hey, you're going to play a big role in the development process. It's an organizational thing, and Justin Jefferson is a huge part of our organization, especially on the offensive side. So, we've got Josh McCown and Jordan Traylor and Wes and myself coaching. It's not like we need another quarterback coach, but what we need is a guy in that huddle who's played football at a world-class level to be able to give feedback, to be able to say, his input on a lot of reps that Justin's had in this system of what it's going to feel like and what his expectations are on certain plays. And the way he's done that has been so productive and such healthy dialogue. I think JJ has really benefited from it. It's been TJ, it's been Ryan Kelly at the center spot, it's Brian O'Neill, CJ Ham. We've got unbelievable leadership as well as really good players around JJ, so that's why I challenge him every day to just embrace all of it, because there'll be plenty of time for him to be overly critical of himself or any one particular play. Now is not that. This is still a time where we're trying to build an incredible support system around him, and then challenge him and test him and make things hard on him and see the growth that can come from that, because that's where true growth happens. And he's had a really good spring, so it's been good. It's been good to see the whole kind of thing and people take on maybe some new roles and responsibilities on and off the field.
Kevin, I know you about this was a time for him to maybe take some risks and to do some things, but balance it. What did you learn from him in this period where he could kind of let it loose maybe a little bit before you pull back?
Yeah, I think I've seen it quite a bit before with different quarterbacks at different points in their kind of quarterback journey. You go through the phase of trying to do exactly how you think on paper it's supposed to be done, and then these are living, moving, very world-class talented athletes out on the field, where it doesn't always translate to what the paper looked like or the picture or even the clip that we installed the play off of. So you get out of this kind of structure that you still have to have, but then there's a feel of how far can I test that. But then you learn pretty quickly, you better be doing it with the right principles. You can't predetermine, hey, I'm going to do this and this is going to happen. You do that and you don't play fast with fast eyes and feet and eyes tied together. Some bad things can happen in a hurry, and I think he's kind of learned both sides of it, which has been really positive. And then he finished up with some, really, really solid, like, you guys weren't here every day, but, growth reps where I can go back and think of a play, conversation him and I had, conversation he maybe had with Jets or TJ, and then you saw the immediate response. And that's all what you're looking for at this point in time is those moments, those critical moments, and then how do we maximize them so that they can become, kind of chapters in the book of that development instead of just a speed bump of, man, I wish I would have done that better. Why, what, when, how, and how do we do it better next time? It's been really cool.
Kevin, I know you've talked a lot about how you and Flores kind of help sharpen each other from a schematic standpoint. Can you do some of that in practice, even like calling plays against each other? Like,
today he must have been pretty close to the end of the offseason program, because today he ran some stuff I didn't even know that was in there. Ryan Kelly turned to me and asked me how to target a run. I said, your guess is as good as mine. I got no idea what they're doing over there. And it was kind of his first exposure to, and they were just trying something out, using a specific grouping that we have not seen before, and that's flow. And I challenge them all the time to do those things, and then, we're doing the same thing on the offensive side, trying to take something that now some of our players are 2-3 years in on this play. So can we find nuances to it to either give the players more ownership on either side of the ball? That's something that I've really felt both sides really stressing this year is, we know the systems, we kind of know the baseline of it, but here's the next layer of it where we want you guys to have that player ownership of it and maybe even the control of it, which has been really fun. But it's happening, and it'll happen in training camp. I'm sure there'll be, one day where I'm mad at him or he's mad at me, and then we have a big old hug after practice and move on. But that's what, our team is like that. Our offense and defense are like that. So Flo and I, we wouldn't be our authentic selves unless we were competing and trying to have the best of our team come out for the betterment of our team.
And the soccer shit there was out. And I think 2 days ago, and not yesterday and today. So where does that speak to where he's at with him?
Yeah, I think, part of it was, I've told you guys, I think at the beginning of the offseason program, whether it was, probably talked a little bit about him at the draft or at the combine draft, whether it was one or the other, and then the start of the offseason program, he's done, every single day, talk about a guy with laser focus on what's right in front of him, and that can be very difficult when you're a player coming back from an injury, and a lot of it is outside of his control. But I can tell you, whatever is in Christian Darisaw's control, and maybe more so than most going through an injury like that, he has been phenomenal. It was just a matter of he's progressed to a point that, if you put some trainers out in front of him, we're going to have to go find those trainers after he throws them over the fence, because he's that strong. So we had to get him back around real football players because of where he's at. That doesn't mean his timeline has necessarily changed or what we thought. All I've told Christian is, let's worry about that when it's time to worry about that. All you can control is the here, the now, the present, and just continue to set weekly goals that he is crushing in a really positive way. So I'm super proud of him. I think his teammates have really seen it, and that goes a long way, with what CD is for our organization.
What would you make just of your first exposure with Sam Howell, Max Brosmer in the quarterback room?
No, I thought there was a lot of really fun dialogue. I probably was in there a little more than I had been in the past, with JJ and just some new players in there. But I think all of those guys, I think Sam has really demonstrated kind of some unique abilities to, change trajectories of the ball, different speeds, anticipate, like a guy that's played in the NFL before. And when he previously played, they were a lot of drop back pass, a lot of throwing the ball all over the yard, and he was responsible for, everything. And so I think he's really enjoyed learning kind of the behind the curtain of the offense a little bit, and then how he can apply it, as I told Sam Darnold a year ago, your experience matters. We just got to figure out how to apply it in a pretty positive way in this offense, and then, watch the growth happen. And I told Sam Howell the same thing, and he's kind of like JJ. He's made some throws where you're like, man, probably shouldn't have made that throw, but I now know on this play I got to be careful of this, and it's all growth. I think Max has done Max is as smart as any young player that, I've been around, from a standpoint of really hadn't been exposed to a lot of reps this spring, but, his ownership of the information, kind of right on par. Brett's got such value in so many different ways in the quarterback room, but Brett's an extension in many ways of a coach that can still throw it a lot better than I can, that's for sure. So I'm excited about our room. All those guys are at different places, but at the same time, different places in their development, but at the same time pushing each other rep to rep, and that's ultimately what you want in that room.
Coach, how much do you appreciate a guy like Eric Wilson, who seems to be going 100 miles an hour all the time? And I was just talking with him, and he embraces special teams just as much when he started his career, and also can make an impact on defense.
Yeah, and you look at him last year, played a ton on defense in Green Bay, and still had his role on the special teams group. And just hearing Matt Daniels talk about his presence in that room, it rivals some other guys we have on our team that have maybe made their initial impact on special teams, but now are thriving in other positions. He hasn't changed one bit. He still values that phase, and he's here for a lot of reasons, on and off the field. Made a tremendous impact. I was not here previously with him, but made a tremendous impact on so many folks in this organization. And I know there was a lot of people that were celebrating getting him back here, and that's for football reasons. That's for the locker room, former teammates, all those things. So couldn't be happier with E-Dub for sure.
How do you look at the receiver battle kind of behind your top three and how that's going to play out?
The top three, having those guys, this is the first time really since I've been here, it didn't sound very good, but since I've been here, that I think we probably had the most reps of what that group is actually going to look like. Because Speedy had a phenomenal spring, Jordan Addison phenomenal, and then Jets, maybe in the best shape right now than I've seen him, not only this time of year, but he's absolutely had a phenomenal offseason, so purposeful with everything he's done. But you're right that, when you start talking about the depth behind there, I think we forget sometimes, guys like Lucky and Jay Sean and Thayer, those guys have been getting coached by Keenan McCardell in a room with those other guys, showing them the way, leading the way. These guys they're becoming really good football players. And then you add in the additions, via the draft, free agency with a couple of Ty and Tim and some of our other guys. And then don't forget about Rondell. He's getting healthier every single day, catching punts, running routes on the side field. I can't wait to get him going. as well. So it's going to be a very, very competitive situation, and that's going to be the kind of what we're talking about more than likely. This group right here throughout all camp is when we do start counting the reps and we do start thinking about what that looks like. I mean, it's going to be a daily, multiple position kind of thing where I think our team is really going to benefit from the competition.
On JJ too, when you do get to the point where he has to be critical, where you do, when does that start, Kevin? And like, how do you transition from it's okay to do X, Y, and Z, but then you get to a day where it might not be okay to do X and Y?
Yeah, I think what he's probably learned is it's already started in some capacities and in other areas where he might think it's I'm going to be critical or something. It's more so if I totally get what you saw there and love the aggressive nature of that, but then other areas when maybe a coaching point that I made for a different play or a different sequence or different situation of the game, like, hey man, what did we talk about when it was 3rd and 7 during that drill 2 weeks ago? And oh yeah, that's right. Well, why is that any different than right now, this play, this moment? And you see the light go on, and that may not sound overly critical, but those are the weighty moments in coaching where you're trying to apply a previous thing that you've taught. Maybe it's not a direct, he should have been able to connect those dots, but if we can start teaching him how to have rep carryover, layered learning, all these pseudo teaching terms, that's what we are. We got to find a way to reach these guys, and the quarterback position is as unique as any in sports of how you coach it, how you talk to those guys, how you hold them accountable, how you give them runway to grow. So it's one of my favorite things about this profession, but it's also a very unique aspect of it that you have to manage and do it the right way on a daily basis.
Last one.
No question?
Just here to watch.
The battle in the secondary.
Careful, man. I got a question for you, actually.
The secondary. How do you see like the new pieces kind of coming together? Mackay, Blackman coming back, Theo Jackson. Did you get a sense for that?
Yeah, first, I think it all starts at the corner spot with Murph, and that's his versatility. We're trying to do some things with some of the additions that allow him to, be in his sweet spot inside when we want him to. We got some really good slot receivers in our division on our schedule that we're going to want to have Murph be at his best to be able to cover those guys. But at the same time, his ownership of the defense, how he works with Harry and Metellus and Theo and the back end, that communication is one of one, in my opinion, in the NFL, and how they make it all go. But when you look at, two guys that, Isaiah Rodgers and Jeff Okudah, I thought had really good springs. And we don't have full-speed team, but we do a lot in the passing game. It's a passing camp. That's what it is. And both those guys, I know demonstrated a lot of things that we were hoping to see. And then in addition to that, maybe they've answered some questions about what we were, wondering what they would be, their versatility, their ability to, sustain some of the best parts of their game while growing some of the perceived weaknesses. And I think those guys are both in position to have great training camps. And then after, those 3 guys, I think we've got, 4, 5, 6 guys potentially that all could push to make our team. What is their role? I think it's going to be up for grabs. And it's very similar on the back end of that corner room that I'm sure Jets would agree the receiver room's like from a standpoint of we're going to be seeing guys compete. And that's the best thing about it is the standard's been set high at the top of those rooms, but we got a lot of guys that are going to be competing like crazy.
Thanks,